Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Frank. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for being here. It's encouraging to see you and the interest here in the Granite State on these very important issues of national security. Having visited here last time, you may remember I ran for president last time. Visited here 30 times last time. I can tell you that it was a rare occasion that I got a national security question 4 years ago. They were just not on the radar. We had 23 debates last time around, and only one was dedicated to national security, and the other 22, there was rarely, if ever, any kind of real substantive discussion on national security. And so it's obviously a much more important issue only because things have deteriorated so badly, and the president has put us in an incredibly vulnerable position as a country and frankly as a world. So I'm anxious to talk about a couple of issues here today on how I was asked to obviously come and talk about the issue of immigration. And I always remind people that if you look at the organizations out there who are for immigration control and actually want to protect our borders and keep our country safe from any type of threat that could be accessed through our southern border, as well as concerned about the overall levels of immigration and who is coming into this country, groups like Numbers USA and FAIR, they've actually done a scorecard. I don't know if you've seen the scorecard, but there's actually a scorecard out there that looks at all the different candidates. I know it's not a political appearance, but they look at the substance of all of these issues, both legal and illegal immigration, and they have graded all the candidates. So if you haven't had a chance to look at that, there are a lot of candidates that you're hearing that have some very fiery rhetoric on these topics. But if you look at the policies they actually support, I know you're not going to be surprised at this, but the rhetoric doesn't match the policies. And I think it's important for all of you, if you're going to be looking at candidates and really are concerned about the issues, not just about the rhetoric, that you actually look at the analysis of all that, and I would encourage you to do so. Let me just give you frankly what I talk about out there on the stump when it comes to the issue of immigration. Over the last 20 years, we have seen 35 million people come into this country, both combined legally and illegally. 35 million. Now you can say that's a good thing, you can say that's a bad thing, and the answer is it could be either. That's just a number. But how do you assess whether that's been a positive thing for the country or a negative thing for the country? The answer to that is, according to the media, you can't ask that question. Because if you ask that question, then you're a nativist. If you ask that question, you're xenophobic. If you ask that question, you hate immigrants. And so we don't ask that question. In fact, we don't even bring the subject up in the context of what should our policy be with respect to immigration based on what is the impact of current immigration policy. It's simply you're either for Hispanics or against Hispanics based upon whether you're for allowing people, anybody who wants to come in, or not allowing people to come in. That is outrageous. Never used to be the case. Never used to be the case. Immigration was always historically a bipartisan issue, really broadly bipartisan throughout the course of the last 100 years. And it has become polarized for a couple of reasons. Number one is because the Democratic Party, who used to actually be concerned about immigration and its impact on American workers, are no longer concerned about American workers. They have become the party of the left and party of special interest groups, of which average working Americans are really not a part of their coalition anymore. It's all about special interest groups that of which some workers some left-wing workers may apply to. But they are more interested in a strategy of getting minority groups and other special interests like abortion groups, environmentalists, etc., maximizing the vote from those areas and really forgetting about the rest of America. That is the strategy President Obama has implemented that was able to successfully win him at least re-election and probably election, and it is the strategy that Hillary Clinton is pursuing. And so when you look at the Democrats and how they look at immigration, they look at it from one perspective. Votes. That's all they care about. This is all about votes. It's not about what's good for the country. It's not about what's good for workers. It's not about what's good for our national security. It's what's good for them at the ballot box. And that's the simple way they look at it. Unfortunately, we have a group of Republicans that makes this very complicated, a complicated issue for us as a movement to go out and talk about. Why? Because they're concerned about what? No. They're tied to organizations that are concerned about profits. Because what they want is a constant labor supply to keep labor costs down in America. It is the Wall Street Journal, Chamber of Commerce view of immigration, which is the more the merrier. We have more people coming in. We keep wages suppressed, and we have a constant source of profits as a result of lower labor costs. And the reality is, it's working. If you look over the last 20 years, when that 35 million people came into this country, basically, when it comes to the wages of people who are competing against these new immigrants, both legally and illegally, what is the vast majority of the new immigrants' skill level? 0 to very low skill, right? And you want to take a look at the last 20 years of what wages that low and middle and lower skill and no skill workers are making in America. Their wages have declined in real terms. Median income has declined. Sure, lots of businesses and other are being very profitable. You're still seeing lots of great reports on Wall Street. You're seeing stock market at all-time highs, in part because they are fueled with immigrant workers who can keep prices of labor down and profits up. And there are many on our side of the aisle, the Republican conservative side, who see this as a good thing. Okay? And so that's where we are. And the problem is that no one is out there fighting for the American worker. No one is out there fighting for stability and security at our border because of the threat that open border poses to the United States of America. Well, except me. Because if you look at that scorecard that I talked about, there's only one person on that scorecard that scores an A. And since this is not a political gathering, I can't tell you who that is. But the next highest score is a B-. And almost all the other candidates are C's, D's, and F's. So understand that this is an important issue to Americans who don't know the facts. I shared this with you, that since the year 2000, there have been about 6.5 million net new jobs created in America. What percentage of those net new jobs are held by people who were not born in this country? All of them. All of them. There are fewer people in America working today who were born in America than there were working in the year 2000. Fewer people born in this country working today than there was in the year 2000, in spite of the fact that there are 17 million more in the workforce. That is a reality that no one will talk about, and if you do, of course, you're anti-Hispanic, right? You're a hater. Well, the American public, somewhat obtusely, through Donald Trump, has figured this out, okay? Because he certainly is not talking about facts. He's talking about, he's feeding hyperbole, some of which happens to be accurate, some of which is not particularly accurate. But he's resonating because Americans probably didn't know the number I just shared with you, but they certainly feel the impact of it. They know things aren't right. They know their lives aren't getting better. The opportunities for them are not improving. And they see no one who's really talking about them or caring about them, and they see this constant influx of people. And you don't have to be a college graduate. You don't have to be someone who's schooled in economics to know that supply and demand works. And if you have an increasing supply of unskilled labor, and you have 74% of Americans, fact that I was wrong with when I first started talking about this, I actually kept saying 70% of Americans in the workforce do not have a college degree, age 25 to 65. And the Washington Post went after me and fact-checked me because, of course, I was wrong in their mind. So they went out and fact-checked it, and it turned out I was wrong. It was 74%, not 70%. So the reality is that the vast majority of Americans are not STEM workers. They're not going to be in the high-tech fields for the future economy. They're in an economy that is not producing a lot of jobs, and those jobs are not producing a lot of increases in wages because we're providing almost exclusively the 35 million are lower unskilled workers competing against those very people in America today who are struggling to rise. So that's the reality of the whole picture of immigration. And that's why I think it's important that we talk about it from that perspective. We can talk about it from a national security perspective. We can talk about it from a cultural perspective. But I believe the strongest arguments that we can make to the American public writ large is talking about it from the perspective of how it affects the vast majority of American workers who are not seeing the economy grow and are seeing that neither political party cares about them. So if you want to be successful in making the arguments to secure the border, talk about American workers. If you want to be successful in making sure that we don't allow people to come in this country on visas and just stay forever, talk about the American worker. If you want to get rid of sanctuary cities, talk about the American worker. Because those are the folks who are going to vote for you, because this impacts them directly. And they realize it, they know it, and you can see it and feel it out there. So I just believe that we have an opportunity to redefine the debate. And I'll close on this portion of my speech with this. It's been quite remarkable. Now, I've been talking about this. Actually, I proposed a while back, actually, a reduction in legal immigration. The only one has proposed a reduction in legal immigration. Proposed a complete closure of the southern border using a combination of physical barriers, technology, and personnel. I have talked about tracking visa overstays, which we, of course, don't do right now. I have talked about employing E-Verify in all businesses for all employees. And I have talked about, as I said before, a change in the structure of legal immigration, getting rid of two categories of immigration. One is the visa lottery, which simply brings people in from countries that are hostile to America, generally speaking, and plants them here because they want a lottery, because I don't know if you know this, but we need more diversity in America. And the second is to get rid of chain immigration. And chain immigration, for those of you who are not aware, is simply an extension of family immigration that extends beyond minor children and a spouse to parents, brothers, sisters, and other adult children. What I've said in response to criticism of that is that if you're an adult, and all of those people I just mentioned are adult, if you're an adult trying to get into this country, you should get on your own, not because you have a relative in this country. It's different if you're a minor, but it is not if you're an adult. Every adult should have to earn their way into this country through the legal system. As simple as that. And here's the interesting part. I've done so within the context of a broader theme of my campaign. The theme of my campaign, as I announced, and again, I'm not doing this as a campaign thing, I'm doing this to give you an understanding how this issue works if you put it in the right perspective. We announced from a factory floor in western Pennsylvania. I've made the focal point of our campaign manufacturing, helping blue-collar workers be able. I wrote a book last year called Blue Collar Conservatives. My entire campaign, everything from regulations to tax changes to I know this is unpopular in conservative circles, but I support the continuation of the Ex-Im Bank. Why? Because we have 60 countries out there that have export financing who want to compete, and if we don't compete with them, we're going to have our lunch eaten, and we're not going to be able to compete on the world stage for a lot of manufacturing jobs in this country, particularly after Dodd-Frank and what it's done to constrain credit to our exporters. So I put together an entire package that says we're going to be pro-manufacturing, pro-construction, pro-blue-collar Americans to create an opportunity to rise in society. And immigration is simply a part of that. You know what? So far, my immigration policies have always been commented, even in the national media, in that context. No one has gone out and said, you know, you're a nativist, you're that. They can't, because it is consistent with a policy that focuses on people that the press knows are the ones hurting in America. There's a way to win this argument. There's a way to win this debate, but you have to do it in the context that you actually care about the people you say you care about instead of using the people you care about as a reason to do something you otherwise want to do. And that's what we've done in the past, and it's been a failure. And we've been exposed, some, not me, exposed for not actually really caring about the people I've talked about. So I share that with you in that I think there's a great opportunity in America today to be able to put forth a comprehensive vision for this country that can actually bring a lot of new people into the conservative movement. I look in Pennsylvania, we're a state that is a blue state, 1.5 million more Democrats than Republicans. We have 13 of 18 congressmen. We have 119 of 203 House members. We have a small legislature in Pennsylvania, not like New Hampshire. We have 30 of 50 senators. And the reason we win, even though we have 1.5 million more Democrats than Republicans, is because our candidates at the local level and state level run with the message I've just talked about. Why? Because that's who we are. Pennsylvania, like New Hampshire, and you're seeing it here, you're seeing it all throughout the Northeast, we're no longer the party of suburban America. We're not. If you're wealthy, if you're an upper income American in the eastern part of this country, by and large, you're not conservative anymore, and you're not Republican anymore. The folks that we win are the folks who on a values level, on a national security level, agree with us, but on an economic level, don't believe we care about them. Well, in Pennsylvania, we actually run people like that for office. And we actually propose and work on economics that is much more friendly to American workers and Pennsylvania workers, and that's why we're winning. Because on culture and defense, they're with us. But if they don't think you care about their pocketbook, you know what happened? I'll tell you what happened last time. They stayed home. You go and look at Real Clear Politics, Sean Trendy, and what you'll find is that the biggest group of people that stayed home in the last election, particularly in the Northeast, were blue-collar workers who did not and could not and will not vote for Barack Obama and probably won't vote for Hillary Clinton. But if we nominate somebody who absolutely is disconnected to them and their world, in spite of saying they're for the middle class, but actually has no connection and no understanding of what they're going through and has policies that you can actually lay out and they can see themselves in the picture that you're drawing for America, then we're going to lose. And so I just would share with you that we have an opportunity here with the right message to be able to transform, like Reagan did in 1980, an electorate that's sitting on the sidelines waiting to see who's on their side, and it should be us. I'll be happy to take your questions.